Please note, this video is best viewed after watching part 1 of Offering to get the context of the story and the best experience. Follow the link in the description or search YouTube for J. Gordon Manius and select the video for Offering Part 1. Thank you. Offering, a novelette by J. Gordon Manius. Part 2.
There's our street, gang.
Pete turned the SUV onto the intersecting road and after cruising halfway down the block, pulled into the driveway.
Man, you're a sight for sore eyes.
He looked at his wife.
I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to my own bed.
She smiled warmly.
Me too.
Pete hit the garage door remote and pulled the car in. He popped open his door, exited the vehicle, and stretched. Then he bent down and stuck his head back inside.
I don't know about you all, but I'm starved. I say we bring the food in and leave most of the gear until after we're done.
Tyler disconnected his seatbelt.
Works for me.
Rachel did likewise.
Works for me.
Her dad opened the door, and she bounded out. As she headed for the house, Pete called after her.
Hey, Rachel, where's Mr. Floppy?
The girl stopped dead in her tracks, then turned around and returned to the car. She grabbed a well-worn, floppy-eared stuffed rabbit from her seat and faced her father.
I'm hungry, but not that hungry.
She strutted up to the door while the rest of the family looked at one another and laughed heartily. Pete came around to the rear of the SUV and opened the lift door.
Tyler, you want to give me a hand with the food?
Sure, Dad.
Tyler joined his father and grabbed a couple plastic bags.
Smells good.
He followed his sister into the house, while his father picked up the remaining bags and closed the lift door. Pete stopped at the door to the house to look at the car. Dried blood radiated from the center of the dented hood.
What a mess.
He shook his head. Tammy stood next to him in silence. He turned to her.
I'll get going on the insurance tomorrow and get work scheduled. It'll look clean and fresh again before long.
He stepped inside the house. Tammy remained standing next to the door.
No one's gonna be able to wash those images out of my head.
In the house, the guys put their food bags on the kitchen table.
Why don't you go ahead and grab whatever of your stuff you want from the car, Tyler? We'll start doling out the food.
Will do.
The boy headed back out to the garage. After a few minutes, everything was ready to eat. The family took their spots. They said grace and the meal began.
Bella loves Susie Chang's.
Pete forked a load of lo mein into his mouth. Tammy eyed a hunk of sweet and sour chicken on her fork.
Yep. And a full day's supply of MSG to boot.
Tyler held up a piece of what looked like chicken, skewered onto his fork.
And don't forget the mystery meat special. It's the don't ask, don't tell ingredient that makes the difference.
The grown-ups laughed.
What's MSG, Mommy?
Tyler turned to his little sister.
That stands for might stop growing, which is why you have a hamburger instead of Chinese.
Both Pete and Tammy just about choked on their food and burst out laughing.
I like hamburgers.
Tammy wiped her mouth.
Yes, you do, sweetie. We know you don't really like Chinese like us, so you get hamburger and fries.
Mine's better too, 'cause I get a toy.
The little one thrust a plastic figure in front of her, which resulted in an explosion of laughter from the others. 20 minutes later, the meal was finished. As the family brought dishes to the dishwasher, Pete approached Tammy and wrapped his hand around the back of her neck.
Why don't you go ahead and take care of Rachel? I'll finish up here and unload the car.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it won't take long. Tyler, would you grab the rest of your gear and your sister's stuff before you head up?
Sure, it's not that much stuff.
Tammy reached down and picked up her daughter, who had been watching them.
Okay, let's get you upstairs and prepped for bed.
I can walk, Mommy.
Sure you can, but then how could I do this?
She lunged her head into the girl's neck and playfully gnawed her skin. Rachel responded with gleeful giggles all the way up the stairs. They stopped at the bathroom, where Tammy put her down.
You go ahead and brush your teeth and get in your PJs. I'll be in later to tuck you in.
Can I play for a little?
Just for a little while.
Here's your suitcase.
Tyler set a piece of luggage down next to Tammy in the hallway on his way to his room.
I brought it up 'cause I had a free hand.
Thank you, Tyler.
No problem.
Tammy watched her son walk away with his ever-present backpack strapped on. Her mother had doted on their kids whenever she was with the family. Tyler's enthusiasm for these visits had become somewhat muted in these last few years, but Tammy knew how her son felt about his grandmother. She sensed things going on inside of him that his current demeanor was glossing over. She picked up the suitcase and brought it into the bedroom. Pete carried a few items up while she unpacked.
Well, that's the last of the tam. I'm gonna unpack a little later. Sounds like it'll be a nice evening. Why don't we relax out on the back porch in a bit?
That sounds like a great idea. I'll be down after I finish up with Rachel.
Her husband approached her and wrapped his arms around her waist.
A glass of Cabernet and I will be waiting for you.
He kissed her briefly on the lips.
Looking forward to it.
Pete headed down, and Tammy unpacked a few more items before she began walking back toward Rachel's room.
Say, Mom,
Tyler called out as she passed his door. She stopped there.
Yeah?
you have a minute?
He sat in the middle of his bed with his back against the wall and legs out in front of him.
Of course I do.
Tammy entered the room without hesitation, though she felt a slight sense of concern. She sat at the end of the boy's bed. Tyler slid his legs off the bed, stood, and walked over to his closet. Tammy watched nervously as he opened the doors and pulled out a poster-sized sheet of paperboard.
I was gonna wait to give this to you on your birthday next month, but I decided now would be a better time for it.
He turned the paper around. A finely drawn ink portrait of Tammy and her mother graced the surface. Tammy's hand came up to her face and large tears welled up in her eyes.
Oh, Tyler,
She looked up at him.
you did this?
He nodded.
When she was last here, I snapped a picture of the two of you at breakfast one morning. I was planning on getting it framed, but I thought you might want to pick your own out.
This is amazing. You've outdone yourself.
She held the portrait out in front of her.
You even captured that glint in her eyes. Thank you, honey. You couldn't have given me a more perfect gift.
She looked up at her son. His chin quivered and his eyes moistened.
I miss her too.
Oh, baby.
Tammy put the portrait down, then stood and embraced the boy. He nudged his head into her shoulder and cried.
It's okay. It's okay.
She caressed his back, then kissed the top of his head.
It'll be all right. We have so many wonderful memories of her. It's like she's still here.
Tammy released her hold and turned to pick up the portrait. She held it before her son.
You have a gift, Tyler. I hope you realize that. I hope you use this gift you've been given to do good and to honor the one who gave it to you.
She reached for his hand and squeezed it.
Don't let it go to waste.
I won't, Mom. It's what I want to do.
Tammy smiled lovingly.
I'm so proud of you, Tyler. You bless my heart more than I can express.
She extended her arms and pulled him close for a firm hug.
I'm glad you didn't wait. Thank you.
Mommy, I'm ready.
Rachel's voice called from her room down the hallway.
I'm coming.
Tammy brushed Tyler's cheek with the back of her hand. She walked down to her daughter's room, speaking to her from the doorway.
Sweetie, I'll be ready in just a few minutes. I just need to see your dad really quick. You can keep playing a little longer.
Okay, Mommy.
With the portrait in hand, Tammy went down to the kitchen and spread the artwork on the table in front of her. She gazed at the image of her mother and herself.
Thank you, God, for such great kids.
She walked to the back door and stuck her head out.
Pete, can you come in here for a minute?
Her husband, holding a wine glass and seated on a swinging seat, set the glass down.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, it is. I just want to show you something.
He stood and followed his wife inside. She stopped at the kitchen table and turned the portrait 90 degrees to face him.
Look what your son did.
Pete didn't say anything at first, just studied the portrait. He picked it up and held it, then looked at Tammy.
Tyler did this?
Tammy nodded.
It's his early birthday present for me.
Pete again focused his attention on the picture in his hands.
What a great kid.
I already knew that. Look at the detail and the way he made the eyes look alive.
To be sure, the kid really has talent. I'm duly impressed, but what impresses me more is the thought and the effort he put in for you. That's love.
Well, I have to take care of Rachel. I just wanted to show you.
Tammy began walking away, but turned just before leaving.
Is that glass of Cabernet breathing?
Pete looked at her with a toothy grin.
As we speak,
Tammy winked, turned, and left. Pete studied the portrait more and shook his head.
you sure didn't get this for me, kid.
He set it down on the table and walked up the stairs to Tyler's room. The boy sat on the bed with headphones on his ears. Pete knocked on the door trim and held up a hand. Tyler removed the headphones as his dad walked in.
Dude, your mother just showed me what you made for her. You're a rock star.
His son returned a sheepish smile.
Seriously, Tyler, that's quite a piece. You have a real gift. Can I?
Pete motioned to the open end of the bed, and Tyler drew his legs up. His father sat and lowered his voice.
It's been hard on your mom these last few weeks. As she saw Grandma getting worse and worse, it took a toll.
Pete's voice lowered further.
When you love someone like I love your mom, it hurt to see her suffer through this. I wanted to take that burden off her. I felt helpless sometimes. So, son, I can't tell you how much what you did meant to her.
He placed his hand on his son's knee.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness to my sweetheart.
Pete's eyes glimmered with tears. Tyler didn't know what to say. His dad's exposure had caught him off guard. The only other time had seen his dad like this was at his father's funeral. He was much younger, and the sensations he felt then were not nearly as pronounced as what he was feeling now. A sudden sense of compassion washed over him. Right now, he didn't see this grown man before him as the father figure he'd known growing up. Instead, he pictured an older version of himself with feelings and struggles of his own. Tyler felt an urge to be forthcoming.
I was glad to do it, Dad. I know what you mean. She's not my sweetheart, but she is my mom, and no normal kid wants to see his mother hurt. This was just something I felt I could do to take away my own feeling of helplessness.
Pete repositioned himself around the back of the boy and gently rubbed his shoulders.
I don't think I've ever told you this, but I appreciate you, Tyler. Sure, you can be a little bit of a pain sometimes, but I get it. I was kinda like that myself. Apple in the tree, right? Anyway, I often thank God for you and getting the opportunity to be your dad.
The boy looked up at his father. The emotion expressed in his face signaled that the words had hit home.
I'm glad you're my dad.
I love you. You know that, right?
Pete gently squeezed the boy's neck. Tyler nodded. His father left the bedside and walked toward the door.
One thing, Dad.
Pete turned around.
Just a tip. You can't say dude. It doesn't make you look good.
Pete smiled awkwardly.
Oh, sorry. I'll make note of it. Good night, son.
Night, Dad.
Pete exited the room and stopped as he came to Rachel's door. Tammy sat on the bed next to her daughter.
I just came up quick to say good night. I'll be down on the porch when you're done.
He addressed his daughter.
Good night, Peanut.
Good night, Daddy.
Pete winked at his wife and left the doorway.
Why does Daddy call me Peanut?
Tammy smiled.
It's a sign of affection.
Rachel's expression begged for a further explanation.
Sorry. That means it's a name he uses to show that he loves you.
Is that because he loves peanuts?
No, silly. It means, to him, you're a cute little thing like a peanut.
The girl took a few moments to process the logic.
It must be a grown-up thing.
Her mom laughed and drew her in.
Oh, Rachel, I wish you didn't have to grow up.
Well, if I didn't, then all my friends would get big and I'd be little. They wouldn't want to play with me anymore.
I'll always play with you.
Tammy gave the girl's nose a pinch.
Even if you're grown up.
Rachel giggled.
Well, anyway, all you need to know is that Daddy and I love you, and that sometimes we show that by these special names.
Is that why Grandma called me Sweet Pie?
Tammy sat silently looking at her daughter for a few moments.
Yes, it is.
She cupped her hand around the side of Rachel's face and gazed into her eyes.
That's an extra special name because she used to call me that too.
Her vision blurred as tears filled her eyes and she stroked the girl's hair.
There's no one else I'd rather share that name with.
Tammy blinked the tears back and pulled the covers over her daughter.
Now, it's time for you to sleep.
She leaned over and kissed Rachel's forehead.
Good night, sweet pie.
Rachel didn't say anything at first. Her attention was focused on a golden cross that was exposed just above her mother's breastbone.
I know why he did it, Mommy.
Tammy's face wrinkled.
Huh? Why? Who did what?
I know why Jesus died.
Rachel pointed at the dangling cross. Tammy looked down and slipped it under her shirt.
You do? That's good. Why did he?
So Grandma could be safe. So we all could be safe. It's just like the deer. the deer on the road. He made sure the others would be safe, even if it made him die.
The images from the other night flashed in succession through Tammy's mind. The stately creature standing heroically in the road, the awful collision, the blood and the stricken beast at the side of the highway. Stunned, she looked at her daughter as her words hit home. A rush of emotion flooded in, and her face felt hot. It seemed as though she would burst. She could barely get words out.
I love you, Rachel.
Tammy quickly exited the room. Tears in her eyes blurred her vision, and she staggered down the hall into the bathroom. She closed the door and leaned back against it.
Oh, my dear Lord Jesus. I didn't realize. I knew, but I didn't realize. You're not just my savior. You're my hero. You're my hero.
Tammy slid down the door until she landed on the floor. Then she buried her face in her hands.
I didn't realize. I just didn't realize.
She wept deeply. After a couple of minutes, the intense emotions eased, and Tammy was able to gain composure. She stood in front of the mirror and wiped her face dry with tissues. As she looked at her reflection, she felt cleansed, like a supernatural washing had just passed through her. She remembered her husband waiting out on the back porch and made her way downstairs. Pete stood looking out over the landscape and turned as Tammy came through the door. Reddened eyes with puffy lids and makeup smears she had missed greeted him.
Are you all right?
Tammy walked over to the porch swing and plopped into it. She leaned over with her arms on her knees and head down.
I'm a basket case.
Her husband quickly took up the seat beside her and wrapped her in his arm.
What's wrong? Are you hurt?
Still hunched over, Tammy turned her head toward Pete.
No, I'm fine. I just feel like I've been run through the ringer.
Why? What happened?
Well, you know about Tyler's picture. That was enough to put me down for the count, but what really hammered me was what Rachel said when I was putting her to bed.
Tammy reached under her shirt and pulled out the cross.
She saw this and told me she knew why Jesus died, that it was just like the deer that was hit that night coming home. Jesus made it safe for us like that deer made it safe for the others.
Wow. She said that?
Yeah, out of the mouths of babes, right? Anyway, that's when it hit me. I remembered those awful images and what you said about fate with the deer and the truck. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors wrecked their relationship with their creator in the garden, and each one of us has inherited that wreckage.
The image of the deer standing before the truck flashed through her mind.
A righteous God couldn't let that pass without consequence, and so an unstoppable judgment was coming like a juggernaut that would eventually destroy us all. We were helpless before it.
What are you saying, Tam?
Tammy sat up in the seat, followed by Pete.
Thing is, this righteous God was also rich in mercy, and so provided someone to save us from what was coming. The judgment was gonna happen, no matter what. It's just who it was going to be heaped on. That truck was not gonna stop. Jesus took the hit. He risked everything to save us. I knew that. I grew up hearing that, but I didn't see it until tonight. Those images of death are seared into my consciousness. It's not the memories in and of themselves. It's the simple words of a little girl that opened a floodgate of revelation that put everything in a whole new light. Last Sunday at church, the sermon was from Isaiah talking about how Jesus would die. The words from that passage came back to me upstairs, and I just totally lost it.
As if she was back in the car, Tammy saw the windshield wipers smearing a crimson film across the glass surface in slow motion.
But the Lord was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief. If he would render himself as a guilt offering.
She looked off in the distance.
The blood of the lamb has new meaning for me.
Pete reached down and grasped his wife's hand.
Tammy, that's amazing. I can see it. I can see what you're saying. That's so profound. What do you say to that?
Tammy looked at her husband.
Thank you. Simply, thank you.
Pete smiled and embraced her. They rocked and held one another in silence as they watched the orange-red disk of the sun slip below the horizon.
I love sitting out here like this with the sun going down. It's so therapeutic.
And I love sitting out here with the person next to me.
Tammy smiled and kissed him. She released her hold and sat back.
I think I'm ready for that glass of wine now.
Coming right up.
Pete reached over to the side of the swinging seat and retrieved one of 2 half-filled glasses. He passed it to Tammy, then procured the other for himself. Tammy took a sip from her glass.
Perfect. This day couldn't end any better.
Got that right.
Tammy stood and stepped forward to the edge of the porch.
I'm so glad we decided to move out here. I know it's more of a commute for you, but the payoff at the end of the day is worth it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Remember, it was my idea. Best acre and a half in the neighborhood, I say. It really reminds me of growing up on the farm. I feel like I've taken part of it with me.
Tammy pointed her glass out toward the yard.
You know, with that property the county has behind us, it's like we have 10 acres. Plus, no one will ever build back there. We get to see all sorts of wildlife back here.
Pete rose and approached his wife. He wrapped his arm around her waist.
Yeah, my favorite is this foxy creature on the porch.
Tammy chuckled.
Oh, Kay. I can see someone's gotten a head start on the Cabernet.
Pete started playfully pecking at her neck.
Oh, Pete, look.
She pointed to the edge of the yard. A deer had just emerged from the brush. Pete released his hold.
Easy, Tam. You'll spook it. Wow, that one's really close.
And it's a big one.
The deer slowly, but deliberately began walking across the property. It stopped directly in front of the couple about 15 yards out, then turned and looked in their direction.
It's an 8-pointer, Pete.
Tammy looked at her husband.
Yeah, you're right. What are the chances of seeing?
Pete stopped mid-sentence, and his eyes grew wide.
Look at the face, Tammy. Does that look familiar?
Tammy stared at the deer and gasped.
Oh my. It has a white patch just like the one we saw in the mountains.
The couple looked at one another.
No way.
They turned and stared out at the motionless deer before them. It continued to stand there as they watched, just returning their gaze.
What a magnificent beast.
It looks so regal.
The deer raised its head and let out a bark, then shook its head. It turned and began to walk away from them. It was just about to the edge of their property when a fawn emerged from where the buck had come. It walked gingerly out to the spot where the elder deer had stood and stopped. The baby turned its head toward the couple and barked twice, then bounded off after the first deer.
Wow. No. You don't think?
Tammy cut him off.
It doesn't matter.
She shook her head and watched as the pair of deer left the open field into the brush.
She's safe.
Pete turned his head to look at Tammy and his brow furrowed.
I know deer a lot better than you, and even I can't tell if that fawn is a female or not.
Tammy didn't return the look, but kept her eyes focused on the edge of the clearing.
No, Pete, not the deer. My mom. My mom is safe. He made it safe for her. I knew that before, but now I really know it.
She looked at her husband.
He made it safe. For all of us.
The furrowing of Pete's brow remained.
What? The deer made it safe.
Tammy's lips pursed, and she vented air from her nostrils.
Really?
She glanced back at her husband's glass behind them.
So, is that your first glass of wine?
A light bulb turned on in Pete's head.
Oh, right. I got it. Not the deer. Jesus.
He turned to look at the edge of the clearing.
I get it now. You're right. It's really true.
Tammy rested her head against her husband.
I'm gonna remember this for the rest of my life.
Thank you for watching the conclusion of Offering, a novelette by JGM Books Fiction author J. Gordon Manius. You're encouraged to share it with others who might be interested. This video was created from the author's story using LazyBird AI. Content was taken from the original manuscript with images and sound added by the author. Some images were created using Microsoft Copilot or sourced from Unsplash. If you'd like to learn more about the author, you can visit his website at jgordonfiction.com. For a limited time, visitors can subscribe to the mail list and be directed to a video version of the author's first novel in the Maledictus saga, Apocalypsis.